welcome. It is a great pleasure that I welcome you to this conference on the future of AI governance, co-organized by the Stimson Center, IRIS, and with the support of Microsoft Office of Responsible AI. We are honored to have such a diverse assembly of experts, policymakers, and innovators gathering here to discuss on major issue of our time. As artificial intelligence continues to evolve at an unprecedented pace, it is an imperative that we address the ethical, social, and economic implications that accompany this transformation. AI is no longer a futurist concept, shaping everything from healthcare and education to finance and national security. However, as AI capabilities grow, so do the complexity and the challenge of governing its development and use. Ethically, we must ensure that AI respects fundamental human rights, avoid reinforcing biases, and operates with transparency and accountability. Without proper safeguard, AI system risk perpetuating discrimination, exacerbating inequality, and making decisions that lack human oversight and moral consideration. Socially, AI has the potential to both connect and divide societies. While it can enhance accessibility, provide improve services, and drive efficiency, it can also widen the digital divide, disproportionately impacting communities. Those without access to AI-driven tools or digital literacy may find themselves increasingly disadvantaged, reinforcing existing socio-economic disparities. Moreover, issue of privacy and data protection remain at the forefront as AI relies on a vast amount of personal information that must be handled with care and integrity. Economically, AI is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it is a powerful engine for growth, productivity, and innovation, creating new industry and opportunities. On the other hand, it is disrupting labor market. If it's not managed responsibly, AI-driven automation could lead to significant job displacement. Proactive policy and education workforce development and social protection are necessary to ensure an inclusion transition. These ethical, social, and economic concerns are not abstract dilemmas for the future. They are immediate and require urgent attention. This conference is a crucial platform to discuss how we can shape AI governance framework that are not only technologically robust, but also grounded in fairness, inclusivity, and sustainability. It is our collective responsibility to ensure that AI serves humanity as a whole, rather than depending existing divided. Our goal today is to explore how we can collaboratively shape AI, equitable AI, regulation, and transcend border and culture. Ensuring that the benefits of AI are shaped by all, especially the most vulnerable communities. We aim to discuss and examine a real-world case studies that highlight both the opportunities and challenges in AI governance. So I encourage each of you to actively participate and share your insight. Let us discuss of opportunity to build a future where artificial intelligence is a force for good, benefits all of humanity. Thank you for being here, and I look forward to a fruitful discussion ahead. Thank you, everyone.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Natasha Crunton, and I'm Microsoft's Chief Responsible AI Officer. I've had the privilege of serving in this role for about 5.5 years now. And this has really given me a front row seat to not only the unprecedented pace of AI innovation, but also the opportunity to really lead a multidisciplinary team of experts who help to guide Microsoft's culture and practice of responsible AI. To give you a sense of what we do on a day-to-day basis, my team helps to craft the policies that our engineering and sales teams follow across the company. We have a special process to review the highest impact and the highest risk uses of AI. My team architects and implements the governance mechanisms. So this includes, for example, building a community of responsible AI champions, as well as making sure that there are accountable leaders within the organization to carry out this work and track its progress. And we also nurture the development of responsible AI practices. This is an area where the state of the art is still quite young, and so we have to keep investing in further understanding the science of AI safety and building out practices that we can implement across the company. In addition to my role at Microsoft, I had the pleasure of serving on the UN's high-level advisory body on AI during the course of 2023 to 2024. So there I had the privilege of working alongside about 31 other experts from all around the world, all different sectors, on some pretty pressing questions about the global governance of AI. Our recommendations were set out in a report that we published just ahead of the UN General Assembly in September last year. Our report was called Governing AI for Humanity. And we were really pleased to see several of them picked up in the Global Digital Compact. This was the agreement that all 193 member states of the United Nations reached at the Summit of the Future last year. This week it's been exciting to be here in Paris, hearing about, for example, two of the recommendations that we made that got picked up in the Global Digital Compact. These were first the establishment of an international scientific panel so we can help chart and document for policymakers the state of the science so we can make science-informed policy decisions. And second, the Global Digital Compact picked up our recommendation around establishing a truly global dialogue on AI governance, recognizing that actually, not all member states are a party to some of the really important governance instruments that have been emerged. So it was really great to see Costa Rica and Spain, who are the member states leading this process, engaged in a consultation, and they will be making their recommendations later this year as to how to set up those two processes. So with that background, I feel really honoured to be here today to underscore the importance of inclusive global governance on AI. I deeply believe that without effective and coherent and inclusive AI governance, the powerful benefits of AI may never be fully realised or shared widely. When I step back and think about my role in all of this, in many ways, I believe that governance starts at home at a company like Microsoft, where we are developing some of the most cutting-edge technology. We've had a long-standing commitment to make sure that we are building and deploying these systems in a responsible way. And just on a practical matter, I'm reminded every day in the work that I do at Microsoft that people simply do not use technology that they do not trust. And we have to earn this trust every day by doing what we say we will. And also making sure that we continue to evolve our approaches as both the technology and the societal expectations continue to change over time. So back in 2018, we adopted a series of principles to guide our work in this space. And since then, we've been on this journey to implement them in a very practical way across the company. One of the key building blocks as we've been operationalizing our principles is that we have tried to develop a governance system that's very interdisciplinary by design. So our system really harnesses the very best of not just the policy and governance team that I run, but also the researchers that we have at Microsoft and, of course, outside of Microsoft as well as engineering expertise. And I can explain how this works by reference to something that we have at Microsoft called our Responsible AI Standard. So our set of 6 principles are quite high-level principles, right? They are that we believe AI systems should be fair, they should be reliable and safe, they should be private and secure, inclusive, accountable, and transparent. Now, those principles are very important and they've guided us throughout, but you really need to make them a lot more concrete in order for them to influence the way in which we actually build our systems. So what we've done through our Responsible AI Standard is to really double-click down on what each of those principles means and to set out a process by which our engineering teams need to take steps to follow those principles. So the development of the standard was, primarily done by our policy experts within the Office of Responsible AI that I lead. But we worked very, very closely with our researchers on this exercise as well. Our researchers help us understand the state of the science when it comes to how best to identify and then also mitigate the risks that we have found. But I'm not interested in building a program that is just words on a piece of paper. So we also need to work very closely with our engineering teams so that the practices are sort of deeply integrated into the everyday way in which our engineering teams work. So they were very much a part of it as well. And then having developed the standard, we have to bring it to life across the company. And this is where our group of responsible AI champions has really come into being. These are individuals that sit across all of our engineering and sales teams, and their job is to really help guide their broader teams as to this particular work and to sort of raise their hand when they need help and just continually help us have that constant drumbeat of not just a practice of responsible AI in the engineering teams, but a culture of responsible AI as well. This type of interdisciplinary work is also how we've done other parts of our program. So as I mentioned, we have a process by which we review sensitive use cases, the highest impact, the highest risk use cases, and that all relies, again, on a combination of experts who in one case are, experts in the social sciences. In fact, the leader of this particular team is a sociologist. So we have social scientists working very closely with deep technical experts. They might be data scientists or machine learning engineers, as well as with legal and policy experts from right across the company. Speaking personally, it's really one of my greatest joys in this job to be able to work with such an interdisciplinary group. And they bring with them experiences of living right around the world as well, which I think is very important to doing this well. So as much as we try and carry this work forward at Microsoft, it would also be a mistake to think that we can just do this work within the 4 walls of Microsoft. We recognize that we don't have all of the answers, and it's sort of been a core design principle from the beginning that we would work very closely with partners outside of Microsoft, coming from civil society and industry, our industry peers from academia, from governments, because we find that when we work outside of Microsoft as well, we come away with a much deeper understanding of what some of the challenges are, and then very often better ideas about how we can take steps towards addressing those challenges. It's one example of how we've done this. Last year, there was an interesting phenomenon that emerged in the debate about AI governance. All of a sudden, the conversation was really peppered with all these acronyms. And, at a tech company like Microsoft, we're quite used to very many acronyms in very many ways, but these were different acronyms. These were acronyms like the IPCC and the ICAO, the International Civil Aviation Authority, or the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency. And the reason these acronyms were coming into the governance conversation is that people were looking for other global governance examples that might have some relevance for AI governance. So we were able, within Microsoft, to reach out to some partners and convene experts in all of these different existing global governance domains. So we were able to find people who were, seminal original authors of the IPCC reports, which, as everyone knows, have been influential in the climate debate. We worked with one of the former directors of CERN because we wanted to learn about what the CERN model could offer for AI governance. We pulled all of that insight together, and what we were really seeking to understand is what could we learn about from those case studies as to what were the goals that global governance could serve and what were some of the core functions that were necessary to carry that out on an ongoing basis. Ultimately, we concluded that there were really three outcomes that were important for us to pursue for the global governance of AI. First, regulatory interoperability. At first blush, that might just sound like, a system to make it easy for companies and organizations like Microsoft to comply with laws across jurisdictions. There is, some element of that, but more importantly, if we really want to get this technology to benefit everyone around the world, then we need it to be able to cross borders. And we haven't succeeded in doing that with many other technologies. And so we wanted to address that here. Second, there is an outcome that needs to be focused on the governance of globally significant risks. So AI is inherently a global technology, and its risks are not contained by the borders of any one particular country. And so there are, risks here that could be realized in one country, but in fact affect the whole world. So we do need a process by which we can manage those globally significant risks. And then third, and very importantly, we need to make inclusive progress here. So we learned from several case studies about how governance arrangements can be put in place at the international level that help to ensure more equitable access to resources. And the other infrastructure, for example, skilling infrastructure, that is really necessary to take advantage of this moment. So we captured all of these lessons that we learned from these experts across domains in a book that we published last year called Global Governance, Goals and Lessons for AI. It's freely available online. So if you look for Microsoft as the publisher of that book, you'll be able to find it, and I hope it's of value. Many of the ideas from that book and that expert consultation were actually incorporated ultimately into the UN high-level advisory body report that I was a part of. And we hope that as the UN is now taking the next steps on what the right governance structures should be internationally, that some of those lessons from past domains will come in handy. On this particular project, we benefited hugely from our amazing Global Perspectives fellows, some of whom are here with us today, because they offered insights into these recommendations and what they were actually going to mean going forward for AI governance. To say a little bit about our Global Perspectives Fellowship, this is a program that we established in 2023 alongside our partners, the Stimson Center. And it was really born out of a recognition that we needed to do more to center the voices and the expertise of our colleagues from the global majority in governance conversations, both within Microsoft, but in the broader external dialogues that we're a part of. And, it's especially wonderful to have them here in Paris this week, participating in these global dialogues of significance to the world on this stage. The goal with the program was really for us to get smarter. We felt we needed to learn as much as we could from our fellows' deep expertise about both, the unique uses and misuses and the different impacts and broader impacts of AI in their respective regions around the world. So throughout the fellowship, the fellows have participated in a series of different activities, First, they've provided us with some really great case studies exploring the benefits and the risks of AI in the context of the Global South. They've contributed to focus group sessions on various artifacts that my team has been working on to implement within Microsoft. So this might, for example, include we're working on a new version of the Responsible AI Standard right now, and they helped us with some advice on the second version so that we could carry that into the third. And as is evident by them, a few of them being here with us today, when the opportunity has presented itself, we've been really delighted that we've been able to sort of make sure that there was the opportunity to come to a place like Paris and participate in this week's pretty significant events that I think feel significant in the moment, and we'll look back in history and they will also be noted as sort of material moments in the development of global governance for the world. I think when I think about what I've seen this week in Paris, and it's been apparent this week, but I think it's apparent many weeks, the truth of it is that AI innovation is not progressing at the same pace everywhere around the world. And yet the impacts of AI, positive and negative, are being felt around the world. And so when we're envisioning what global governance needs to look like in this space, it is really important that we design our institutions and our governance structures so that every country and every institution that wants to participate has a real and meaningful opportunity to do so. And goodness knows there's sort of no shortage of work to be done in this space. This year, as we were in our conversations with our fellows, they really brought to our attention the fact that while the governance of AI continues to be a very live topic that animates, discussions like we've had this week, it's not often explored as a standalone subject in the depth that it deserves, and in particular with this focus on the need for truly inclusive governance. So to address this gap, we selected 5 of our wonderful fellows, today representing views from Thailand and the Democratic Republic of Congo, the Kyrgyz Republic, Egypt, and India, to co-author a paper that really aims to explore the existing challenges when it comes to inclusive governance and what it will take to turn the tide on that and make it truly inclusive. So today I'm really excited to hear from our fellows and for their valuable insights to be shared more broadly. You've heard that we've benefited a lot from their expertise at Microsoft, and I'm so pleased that their insights are getting to a broader audience. My hope is that their views will contribute to a growing body of work about what inclusive global governance really looks like in practice. So before I wrap up, I just wanted to offer a few words of thanks. First to our hosts at IRIS, without whom this event definitely wouldn't be possible. I also want to thank our long-standing partners at the Stimson Center for both co-organising this event, but more broadly, just being essential partners in this effort to centre the voices and expertise of our colleagues from around the world. Lastly, I'd like to thank our audience, both online and in the room here, for exploring this very important topic with us. I think we're all going to learn a lot, and I hope we can take the learnings from today and turn them into action so that, as we look back on this moment, we know that we all sort of participated in having a deeper understanding of what's needed for inclusive global governance, and within each of our spheres of influence, we took steps to action that. Thank you very much.
My side, I'm Julian Müller-Kahler. I'm directing our strategic foresight program at the Stimson Center, in which the Responsible AI Fellowship is housed. Natasha, thank you so much for being here and for delivering those remarks. I know that you are actually, as a matter of fact, the highest representative of Microsoft here in Paris this week. So I know we can't take it for granted that you're here for this event as well. And you know, giving this opportunity to the fellows, two of which I have next to me, Ibrahim and Branka. What we thought we would do before we launch into a broader panel discussing the topic at hand is we wanted to give a little bit of a showcase for some of the amazing projects that we work on. Natasha already mentioned it, but the fellowship really is twofold. On the one hand, it highlights the work that the fellows are doing around the globe, and it allows us to get insight on some of the feedback necessary to develop products, as Natasha said, on Microsoft, but also to learn in the discussion around issues of governance, around risk mitigation, about opportunity seeking. So I think that, at least from my perspective, and you're on stage, so don't say anything different, but I think it's been really a wonderful program that allows knowledge sharing, network gathering, and really the ability to exchange view in that. So without further ado, I want to introduce our two fellows here on the panel. To my right, to your left, is Ibrahim Sabra, who is a research associate at the Department of Innovation, Digitalization and Law at the University of Vienna. But you're originally from Egypt. And you're going to talk a little bit about AI applications in law. And then to my left and to your right is Branka Panic. She's the executive director at AI for Peace, which is a non-profit organization. So you'll be talking a little bit about that as well. And we'll start with ladies first.
Thank you, Julian, so much for this kind introduction. And thanks so much, Natasha, for this wonderful overview of not only Microsoft's work, but also the entire network and the entire fellowship. It's such a pleasure to be here, honestly. Without this network, I don't think I would be sitting here and my voice would not be heard. And maybe just to picture the difference of this experience a little bit more, Natasha mentioned how this program is actually allowing Microsoft to learn, which is really nice and kind, but it also allows us to learn a lot. And this is a fascinating opportunity to also meet people from other regions. Usually when we think about inclusion, we think that global North or US or UK are within their own bubbles. We can also be in our own bubbles, in our own regions, right? I'm coming from Mexico, and we have a very developed Latin America ecosystem. You will have a chance here to meet fellows from different regions as well, from North Africa, from Asia. So just the fact that we are sitting together and learning from each other is extremely valuable. And I have to say that it changed my perspective on so many issues and only amplified this fact that these programs are really needed. And for the AI, so we are here with this occasion of the AI Action Summit as well. And I think the entire summit was a huge test of inclusion as well, because we saw that usually with ministerial summits, not a lot of people have an access to the main grand event, right? But people were so inventive of organizing so many parallel meetings and parallel spaces, and this is one of them where we can actually not only get our messages heard, but have a meaningful conversation. So saying this, I hope we will have some time, and I'll press my clock as well because I tend to talk a lot, but I would really like to get some of the conversation going as well. So as Julian said, my name is Branka. He pronounced my surname perfectly, Panic, in my local language. I'm originally from Balkans, but in English it's quite hilarious because it's Panic. And friends in the audience here know that I usually open with this because it gives me a nice way to introduce myself with this surname that is quite useful for working in AI space, right? So many people are panicking around this now. around this topic. But when we started working on this, I started this organization in 2016. This was not a topic. This was really a bubble topic. And I lived in California. I finished my master's in the US and lived in California, where this little bubble did talk about some of the things that we are living through today. People were saying that this is mostly hype. Now we see that most of these things were actually not hype at all. But just to amplify some of these perceptions at that time that this group of people had, I picked up some of my favorite quotes that can explain how big of a thing even then the artificial intelligence was. And one of them says that AI is the single biggest technology revolution the world has ever seen. And now you can hear this often. And I think we heard it at the summit as well so many times. AI will not only be a game changer, but it will disrupt the entire playing field, which I think is quite a substantial one. And then probably the most famous that Stephen Hawking left us with, that AI is likely to be either the best or the worst thing to happen to humanity. And this is, although a very tough one, I think, not an easy task now to decide if this will be the best or the worst thing to happen. I still think it's quite a motivating and also inclusive one, right? Because it leaves to us this decision and action of, will this actually be the best or the worst thing to happen to us? So today, in the last 10 years, we see everybody are talking about artificial intelligence, and AI is everywhere. And what we in my field, I'm coming from peace building and humanitarian action field, started also asking myself, wait, if all of the other fields are actually impacted by this technology, what is happening at this intersection of artificial intelligence and peace building? And even then we saw, now this is very, very obvious, but even at that time, the investment in AI in military was quite substantial, right? And we had these multiple applications of AI in battlefield, in military healthcare, in simulations, situational awareness, prevention, autonomous, like, you probably heard about this many times, autonomous weapon systems, or so-called killer robots. So many applications and a lot of investments. But when we looked at the peace building, there was nothing happening at the intersection of AI and peace building, and exploring and utilizing AI in this field was very limited. So with this idea, we actually started this organization to create a space and to allow people to explore more these applications of AI in peace building. And what we mean by peace building, why is it so different than military and war and national security, is that we are really looking into prevention. And we are looking at the peace building as a strategic activity to solidify peace, and to help practitioners to find these tools that are actually helpful to manage conflict and make sure conflicts are natural and they're happening in our society. They're, many would say, even functional. But what we are trying to do is to avoid that they grew into violent incidents, right, and eventually take lives through wars. We wanted to see if AI can be potentially one of those tools. We call it an AI peace-building toolbox. And as peace builders, we have different mechanisms in our toolbox, like mediation, negotiations, dialogue, reconciliation. And now we are looking into artificial intelligence as a sort of a continuation of many other so-called peace tech tools. Even starting in some regions, radio can be a very successful and productive tool to keep and sustain peace, to phones or internet, and now different technologies under the AI umbrella. So we are also doing something very substantial in our field, and we are trying to move from the perceptions of peace as a negative peace, which is a pure absence of war, to the perceptions of peace as a positive peace, where we are not aiming only at avoiding wars, because this can be done with a pure force as well. And this is what we see in some of these races, right, in building bigger weapons and better weapons, with intimidation, when one country intimidates other countries to actually be stronger and to build peace to, now we hear these expressions a lot after the war in Ukraine, peace to strength, which basically mostly mean building the military and national security. We want to switch that to actually building the capacities for sustaining peace, meaning investing in other institutions as well, switching from even governments and looking into the United Nations, different UN agencies, or even private sector. What is the private sector role in this field? Microsoft has a very substantial program around AI for good, recognizing that even tech companies can do a lot to be part of this conversation. Civil society, academia, all of the institutions that are part of this bigger ecosystem. Now, we are also asking why AI, because we hear a lot of these conversations as well that we should not slip into the techno-solutionism, and AI does not have to be a tool for everything, but we are looking into these spaces where AI can actually be useful. And why is this possible now? Because 10 years ago, we did not have capacities. Only big universities, big governments, or big tech companies had even capacities to look into AI. Now we have this entire democratization of this tool and bigger access, bigger inclusion. And because of the increased computer processing, huge availability of data, developments in machine learning. Now, especially we see in the last 2 years, incredible developments in natural language processing. We see that those are some technical developments that are allowing us, as well as organizations with quite a lot, as Julian mentioned, we are a civil society organization with quite a limited amount of resources, but even for organizations like ours, this technology is now available. And now why peace? Why we are looking into peace and conflict now? Unfortunately, I don't have good news here, and the needs are big, and I don't think I maybe even have to give any data on this. It's enough that you just listen to the morning news or open the newspapers to realize that we are not going in good direction in terms of wars that are being waged across the world, or the levels of conflict and violence. We have multiple resources that are actually tracking the level of peacefulness in the world, and we see that the level of peacefulness is deteriorating in the last 10 years. A lot of civilians are actually losing lives in conflicts, and conflicts are becoming much more complex, and we are not acting fast enough to understand how are they changing, in which direction. On top of that, we do have a lot of data resources that are overlapping different signals from conflict settings, some of them being climate. We are now very, very conscious about this intersection of climate change or natural disasters and how this actually impacts conflict. And we, for the first time, have such amount of data to actually understand these relationships. So with this, we kind of concluded that peace is in urgent need of help. And we are looking into artificial intelligence. We are looking at risks, of course. As we heard, this entire event is really looking into what are the real and potential future risks of this technology. And we are doing research on this side, but we are also looking into potentials of proactively using AI as a tool to sustain peace. And our vision is a future in which AI benefits peace, sustainable development, and humanitarian action, and where diverse voices are also part of this conversation. And I think I'll maybe conclude on this and leave some time for conversation as well, to really emphasize this fact of inclusion, which our entire program is about in this conversation. where when we were starting this work, there was a perception that the AI work is only for data scientists, and that they are the only ones who have skills and knowledge to actually build something or to participate in these conversations in the design, development, and application of artificial intelligence. And then in the last 10 years, as we heard from Natasha, this entire movement of responsible AI was developed and recognized that this is not a conversation anymore just for experts in the data science, that expertise is everywhere and that AI needs to listen these voices from different fields, from different sectors, including in our case, when we build tools for peace building, we need to listen people who work in these settings and even people who have lived experiences in these countries. So this is the essence of our organization as well, and we build different tools and methodologies where we can not only talk about principles of participatory AI or AI inclusion, but actually do this in practice and bring all of those voices to the table. So with this, our aim, and I love to say this because our aim is to work with peace builders and really make them more aware, knowledgeable about AI, make them capable to speak up on these issues. But we also want to work with data scientists, and I like to say this, make them a peace builder, a little bit of peace builders themselves as well, and make sure that the work that they are doing in the field of AI actually contributes to sustaining peace rather than waging war. So I'll leave it at this, and I look forward to the conversation. Thank you, Julian.
Wonderful, Branka. Thank you so much. I'll have Ibrahim go first, and then we can maybe have a few questions. So Ibrahim, over to you.
Thank you, Julian. Thank you, Branka. And thanks, everyone, for being here today. Very briefly about myself. So I grew up during the Arab Spring. I don't know if you are aware of it, but it started in like 2011. And since then, I have been quite motivated and happy or like interested in technology and exploring its impact, because technology was like the key factor in this Arab Spring. And since then, I have been involved in working on issues related to technology, but then it was work more focused on Egypt and the MENA region and Africa. But then I thought, okay, I need to take another step and go to Europe and see how the legal system, the more developed, the more advanced legal system, it is controversial, but I think it's the most advanced legal system when it comes to technology. And after this, I get this magnificent opportunity to be part of this fellowship, which introduced me to case studies and knowledge from countries all over the world. And you then find out that, okay, the global majority of the global south is quite really advanced in some technologies, specifically AI. Like it's not the global north exclusively. So yeah, that's it. I come from a legal background, so I will be talking about applications of AI in the judiciary specifically. But before doing so, I wanted to ask a question: to what extent you feel that this would be relevant to your work or to your personal life? Do you think this would have some sort of impact on your life in a way? Would you raise your hand? Okay. So it's simple. I mean, access to justice would affect and is relevant to every single person. Whatever your work sector, your focus areas, your interest, it is relevant. And that's why I think these applications are important, that we as people, whatever our background is, to understand a bit about it. So I will give you a brief introduction about the use of AI in the judiciary. So the UNESCO, a couple of years ago, they conducted a survey among judges to know what they use AI and how they use it. And generative AI specifically, they found out that the majority of judges are aware of it. But then they asked another question: to what extent are you expert? Do you have an expertise in the use of generative AI? And interestingly, they found that 31% of the judges claim to have quite good expertise in the use of generative AI. while almost 93% said that they have some sort of knowledge about the use of AI. But what is more interesting is that 44% of them are actively using generative AI in their work. Some of them use it for summarizing cases, some of them use it for getting information resources and so on. And then, interestingly, just a second. Yes, so some of them usually, they use generative AI, but then 6% of them, they use generative AI outputs without verifying or editing the content. And this is quite alarming, because at the end of the day, generative AI is not a trustworthy source, and it has to be double-checked, and the content that you get it from generative AI should be double-checked, specifically in the judicial field, I mean. Okay, then I will simply, in the judiciary, we have 3 systems of AI that are being used at the moment. So we have this very basic AI system that they use it to do some administrative work. So it's like, let's say, the assistants, or they do the clerical work. So they do case management, like filing a case, appointments, and so on. So this is one thing. One example on this is, for example, in Egypt, we have this system where we have, instead of clerks, we have now, like in some courts, automated transcription services. So instead of having a natural person writing or transcribing the session, the court session, we have an automated system. But in this specific case, I don't know if you use this AI transcription automated services, but the accuracy is not really high. So imagine if this is happening in court, to what extent the accuracy would be a factor that should be taken into consideration. And then we have also, this system is deployed among various countries, including Turkey, Azerbaijan, India, Singapore, Morocco, and Tanzania, and definitely China. And then we have a bit more advanced system called AI recommendation systems. So these systems, they do a more advanced job. So you ask them about a case, they give you a summary of a case. You ask them to summarize a court decision, a previous court decision, they also summarize this court decision. You could ask them whether it's relevant to the case at hand, they could tell you yes and why, and so on. So this is somehow could be seen as helpful, but here's the trick. You could easily ask AI about a case and ask for a summary, and it will give you a really good summary, but it's fully not fabricated, I would say. Fabricated is not the accurate word, but I mean, he made it out. So he made it up. So it's not actually the summary of the case. But if you read it, and if you are not expert, you would easily be deceived by this summary. So this is one issue. So that's why using this in courts is quite controversial and should be done. First, it should be well tested to make sure that the information that is this generative AI is trained on is accurate, to ensure that at least what you get out of it could be used in a way. We also have a few examples of this. So in the United Arab Emirates, we have a system called Aisha. So it provides citizens, for example, with court hearing timings. It also assists judges with relevant case law, legal precedents, and so on. It also helps lawyers with getting legal resources that is relevant to their case. We also have examples across Egypt, Singapore, Brazil, and China that has this system. And then we have the most advanced one, the AI decision-making system. At the moment, you can really say that there is a fully autonomous legal AI system that is used in the judiciary. But we have a very interesting example from Brazil. So they have a system called Victor, and this system, when you file a case, the system decides first whether this case is in the public interest or not. And if it's in the public interest, it sends it to natural judges to review the case. And you could claim here that this is some sort of a making decision, because it could decide whether this case will go through or not. And the question is, do we really want AI to do this or not. So this is like the most controversial example. Now we have it also in Argentina, Colombia, and China. When I was doing the research, I was expecting China to be the first country, but actually Argentina is quite advanced in this, same as Colombia, and as you see, Brazil. So what are the challenges that we think is related to this? So aside from the basic one, the data bias, we also have the issue of privacy erosion. So usually, if you go to a lawyer, you have this confidential privilege. So whatever you say to your lawyer, they cannot expose it in any manner, even if it's unlawful or illegal. The question is, when you use AI, you train them on this data, and it's private. So now AI can use it in the future. So this could easily erode privacy. The other one is that in the judiciary, specifically in common law countries, the law develops through legal interpretation. So judges entertain cases, and by time, the legal interpretation evolve and develop. The issue with AI is that it's more focused on consistency. So it tries to ensure that every single similar case is treated the same way. So this could erode, like, let's say, judicial autonomy. So judges are no longer part of the development of the law process. Yes, and finally, I don't know how you feel about this, but public distrust. I don't know if you would trust more an AI system or a natural judge. I mean, we already have our issues with natural judges. Do we actually need an additional layer of an AI system to decide our matters? So this is also an issue. But these are the challenges. Moving to, like, let's say, more of opportunities. So I don't know the situation here, for example, in France, but in the majority of countries, we have this case backlog. So you submit a case, and then you have to wait quite some time to get it solved. So one of the uses of AI is that it could help with repetitive claims that are small claims. So usually you could go to court, you just need a signature from the judge to prove that this agreement has been settled, and so on. So it doesn't involve any analysis or any discretionary power from the judges. So for example, this AI could help with this. Also, sometimes when there are disputes and you reach a settlement, so you already have a settlement agreement, so you don't really need an input from the judge, except that it approves it. In this case, the AI also could double check that the agreement is lawful, it doesn't contradict with the law, and just approve it. In this case, no analysis is required. Finally, I don't know to what extent you are aware of this, but in the judiciary, for example, if an African court could consult case law from the European Court of Human Rights or from the US Supreme Court, and in this case, one of the issues is the language barrier. Aside from the language barrier is access to the court decisions. So when you have a generative AI system that is actually global and inclusive, judges from Africa could use case laws from the US Supreme Court. They could consult them. They could consult cases from the European Court of Human Rights and so on. So this could, in a way, help judges in understanding how other jurisdictions apply and implement and interpret the law. So yeah, in conclusion, I think it's simple. Like, to what extent you use AI, you need human oversight. You cannot use AI without a human oversight. Regardless of the accuracy rate of an AI system, you still need human oversight. And I think I will conclude by this because I feel like human beings are not that given enough attention in this conversation.
Well, thank you very much, Ibrahim. So we have time for one or two questions, if you have any. Otherwise, I'm happy to ask them as well. But if there's any sort of follow-up either to Branka or to Ibrahim, yeah, please. And I'm happy to repeat it for the online audience.
Thank you so much. I'm Anda. I do research in this space as well. It's super interesting. I'm also a lawyer by training. And I was thinking about what Ibrahim said about using large language models to summarize cases. And I think one way to make sure that the model doesn't hallucinate is to control the temperature of the model. So basically, that could be one, just to add on what you said, that there are simple techniques to actually ensure that the model doesn't hallucinate. And this can still be used as a good tool for summarizing and speeding up the process. And I was present in the same kind of conversation at the Internet Governance Forum, where more countries that are still developing were tentative and talking about their challenges, because in order to use these tools, you have to have a system that is already quite well digitized, like say Estonia. But what strategies for countries that don't have, like I come from Romania, and there's a lot of paper in there. So how to leapfrog in those types of countries? Would you have any suggestions or recommendations on how to best make sure that those countries are not left behind?
I have to repeat the question for the online audience. So the question basically is how you can advance or use some of those tools in less digitized economies or societies, in the sense of not having the available data that allows an adequate usage of LLMs. And then you also mentioned some tools that could help with preventing some of the harms that Ibrahim mentioned in his remarks. So Ibrahim, if you want to take that question.
Thank you so much. So I will try. I mean, I will answer based on my experience. So I do believe that in order to have a proper, well-trained AI system and to have it like local, you need to train it on your local data. And to do this, you need to start with digitizing your court system. And one of the key issues we have in Egypt, for example, that it's all paper. So, but the government and the judicial sector, they started digitizing the whole court decision by digitizing all paper court decision, and now we have like a centralized resource where you can find, or you could have access to all court decisions. Definitely some court decisions are not there due to political sensitivities and so on, but I mean the majority of cases are available there. So I think this is the starting point. Otherwise, I think it will be difficult to use it from a local perspective. Still, you can use it like to, as I mentioned, to consult other jurisdictions. This could be another way to use it for now. The tool you mentioned is quite interesting, and I think this will be helpful. But to be honest, at this point, I think to use an AI system in the judiciary, you have to provide it with the court decision. So you have to give it the content and then ask it to summarize. If you ask it about the name of the case, even if it's a very popular case, it is highly likely that it will hallucinate. So I think at this point, even the most advanced LLM system will hallucinate unless you give it the court decision itself.
Absolutely, yeah.
Really quickly, just to say that the challenge is big in digitalized countries as well. And this is the part of the capacity building we have to do to understand how we can actually prepare our systems to work on data science. Maybe to give a plug-in here for another project, I'm working with my colleague here, who is the lead of Data Innovation Lab at the German Federal Foreign Office. Where we struggled even with documents like PDFs or even with surveys, understanding that you cannot process this easily if it's not formatted, in a way that can be readable by machine learning, right? And it was a simple process also connected with the event that we gathered today of the Global Digital Compact and consultations around these big negotiations, right, around the GDC, where it was just a matter of a simple instruction. You have to submit your suggestions in this format and not go beyond that. So just understanding that we need to do a lot of awareness raising and capacity building to actually be able to benefit from these kind of tools.
As a German, I'm happy to trash my own country a little bit and say that there are sometimes even faxes still to be sent. So speaking of digitalization, Branka, one last point before we move on to the... Oh, you have one question. Perfect. Yeah, please go ahead. We have a mic, actually, so hold on a second.
Thank you. My question is, are we worried that the adoption of AI in judiciary might be a slippery slope? Meaning the opportunities that Abraham mentioned, for example, using AI to deal with some simple cases like small claims. It seems to be mostly all right today. Shall we defer some minor crime for the system tomorrow? And would it become a slippery slope? And where should we draw the line? Should we draw the line for a certain level that we want to safeguard those kinds of levels for human decisions only, or how should we deal with that?
Thank you so much for this question. I think that's quite important to elaborate on what I mentioned. So first of all, I do believe that the use of AI systems in the judiciary should not be in criminal cases at all. So this is one thing. The second point is that AI should not decide unless discretionary is not needed. So if the rule is simple, like if you let's say a fine, for example, imposing a fine. So if you commit this, you are fined a specific
amount of money, and it's like most of the laws, they give you like a range, so from like a 100 euros to 500 euros. In this case, I do believe that AI should not be used, because this is you decide based on it's the judge's discretionary power. So I think in this case, natural judges should be involved, and AI should not be used at all. Also, one thing, the issue with using AI beyond this and in discretionary occasions, this might actually diminish judicial judges' autonomy, because at the end of the day, when you go to court, judges have empathy, and they think about the situation and the complexity of the situation and so on. AI can do this and will not be able to do this, at least for now and for the near future. So I think AI should not be used beyond simple cases that doesn't require any discretionary at all.
Thank you. Last question to Branka. Can you talk a little bit about, there's been some very positive use cases for using AI tools for peace negotiations and trust building exercises, where an AI basically listens to conflict mediation and is able to represent rather unbiased, if you train it to be different perspectives, and makes suggestions on how to potentially come up with a treaty or so on and so forth. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, this is still a big question mark, and I think it's good that we are still in a pilot phase of testing so many of these tools, especially similar to legal cases that Abraham is talking about. Negotiations, mediation, anything related to diplomacy is still very much human-to-human related, and trust plays a big role in this. So I think we'll have to, first of all, build these tools to be capable to do some of these things, and then actually have trust in them. I think we are entering really exciting and maybe risky future with AI now, with AI agents. And this is where people especially see the potential of having agents playing this role of picking up from negotiations, right? The certain signals, which countries are more aligned or less aligned? What are the potential solutions of a certain conflict or whatever we are negotiating that humans as such are not aware of? And I like to make this parallel, maybe remember these systems that have been trained to play certain games like chess or Go, where they were competing with the best players, human players in the field. What ended up happening and why these systems were actually winning is that they were inventing moves that humans did not even consider in these games, right? So I'm thinking in that direction, and I'm thinking also in negotiations and mediation, maybe these systems come up to the similar moves like in chess and Go that we as humans were not aware of. And this is, what makes me excited with this comment again that there are a lot of risks that we need to be aware, because consequences of misusing these systems or abusing them are really big in our field.
Oh, wonderful. Now that I think it showcases again that at the end of the day, it's how we use those technologies, and we can use them positively or negatively. Thank you both very, very much. We'll transition over to the panel, and I'd like to ask the panelists to come up on stage, please, and we'll transition. Thank you. Okay, while we're getting set up here, I'm going to use the time to maybe, okay, we can do it. To introduce the panel, while we, as I said, have used the first panel to showcase some AI applications, this panel now is really with the intention to talk about global governance frameworks. And I'm delighted to be joined on my right here by Narun Popatachanai. He is the Director of Impact Assessment at the Office of the Council of State in Thailand. To my left, we have Aziz Soltobayev, who's a policy advisor on digital issues in Kyrgyzstan. And we have Jibo Elias, all the way over to my right, who is the country lead in India for the Responsible Compute Challenge at the Mozilla Foundation. And last but not least, we have Julia Volkovska, who is a senior researcher in sociology at Social Sciences Department, the Orange Research Labs, and an associated researcher at the Center for Study of Social Movements at the École Haute d'études en Sciences Sociales. I hope I got that right. Thank you all very much. As we've heard both from Natasha and throughout the conversations over the last couple of days, the question of AI governance is imminent in a lot of ways. But I think what became obvious is that depending on who is speaking, whether it's industry, whether it's the public sector, or whether it is developed economies or representatives from the global majority, the conversation is very different. So, Narun, I'd like to speak to you or hear from you first on sort of what is your perspective and what are the challenges when it comes to AI governance that a country like Thailand faces, and is it even applicable yet transferable if we're speaking about AI governance efforts from your perspective?
Thank you, Julian, and thank you for having me. My name is Naran Popatachanai. As Julian said, I'm from Thailand. By training, I'm a lawyer. I work with the Office of the Council of State, and we, in that capacity, we have two roles within the government. So we are the legal advisory body to the Council of Ministers, so the cabinet. So we advise directly to the cabinet. And on the other hand, in my team specifically, we lead the design governance for digital economy. So not just AI. In the past, we've done design exercises for example, crypto regulation, crypto industry. We've done one for the digital platform economy. Both of them have become a hot topic and popular discussion topic in Thailand in the past 5-6 years. And now in the past couple of years, we have this new emergent topic of AI. So that's where I come in. So we see commonalities of requirements, of challenges across all of these sectors of digital economy. And we're trying to apply that to the context of Thailand, an economy, a smaller economy, whereby we mostly receive technology. We mostly the technology recipient rather than the exporter of the technology. So with that context, I think I see a couple of challenges with regard to trying to design a governance structure or governance approach to AI and AI economy of the future. So first, I think in Thailand, it's the problem of framing, right? I think I spoke about this yesterday in one of the panels that I was part of. So it's a framing problem, and we need a tool to bridge the gap between different type of framing perspective. So on the one hand, and this is one of the example, right? So on the one hand, we have the proponent of the individual rights, especially those who want to be in protection of democratic rights, freedom of speech, privacy rights, and things like that. So these group of people tend to be quite protective or rather careful, cautious about adoption of AI. And on the other hand, we have those who are supporting what you call market dynamics, who want to promote innovations, who claim that maybe we should try first, and then we try to correct some errors later, right? So we have these two very distinct perspectives on the spectrum, and it amplified in countries like Thailand because on the market dynamic proponent side, most of these groups are not local, right? They come from somewhere else, and they're trying to impose these narrative onto the conversation. I'm not saying that it's a bad narrative or it's a negative narrative. I said that it's a narrative that might not speak in the way that we speak before. But the governance design for us is how can we make these two group of people speaking in the same way, or at least seeing the society in a complementary way? Can these binary discussion not be a zero-sum game? So I think that's the challenge of the governance that we are facing in Thailand. Can we have a tool that allows the discussion to not picking between one of the two and find a commonality or find a solution whereby we can both protect our rights and civil liberties, and on the other hand, promoting not only relationship or partnership with our international partners, but also promote local innovations as well. So I think I'll leave it at that first, but that's basically the first step of when we think about governance design, especially in the context of AI.
Thank you, Narun. Juliet, can you resonate if we're talking about European capabilities, right? I mean, it's probably the only region yet that has sort of really codified some of those aspects into a law. I mean, if you're talking about the other industrialized part of the world, it doesn't even have a privacy law, the United States. So how can you share some of those concerns and considerations that Narun shares from his own economic and social context, and what does that mean for debate here that we have in the European Union, where obviously the discussion is in different ways similar, but also quite different?
Yes, thank you. So what I was thinking about the morning here, what is inclusiveness? And this was one of the questions of Natasha, what is an inclusive AI? And there are different levels of response of this question. First of all, to follow on your question, we are in the context of the Paris AI Summit. And as you probably know, there are two countries that declined signing the declaration of the summit. So the declaration was the statement about the inclusive and sustainable AI, and 12 countries signed it yesterday, included China, but not US and United Kingdom. So this is in the context we are, this is one of the questions we can have about the global governance, because this statement was about open, inclusive, transparent, ethical, safe, trustworthy, sustainable AI. And one of the questions, it is not constraining, it's just a declaration of goodwill. But one of the questions in the summit and in this statement was about how to take into account the international frameworks. And the big problem is here in the European Union, there is a legal, the only in the world legal framework about AI, which is very controversial. There are only 4 levels of risk in this AI Act, but it exists. In the European Union, we have also DSA, the Digital Services Act, that also aims to regulate this cyberspace. And the question is how to connect this regulatory space with the rest of the world, Thailand, United States, the Global South. And for the moment, we don't really have the answer, and not only we don't have the answer, but there is a real tension between this effort to regulate and to have a framework with ethical and principles, and countries like official positions of the United States that is that they are afraid that this regulation will hinder the innovation and the research. So this is the question. But I want to add just 2 other points, because this is the legal and the political level, but the inclusiveness and the inclusive AI, the question of this question is also, we can ask this question all over on the chain of the production of AI, from the development and the design of algorithms through the uses. And when we think about the training of these neural networks, as you, for example, you mentioned in the legal cases, we never, or not so often, speak about the human invisible work to prepare the data sets. And here in the French academic space, there are many studies now. They call it micro work. So this is the work of people that will anonymize, tag, label, and qualify data sets to prepare them for training AI. And this is a part of the production chain. And here we can also ask questions about inclusiveness. What are the work conditions of these people that are participating and contributing to what we call AI systems? And also this recent French research shows that there are many outsourcing processes. So this annotation and preparation work is outsourced in countries in Global South, where the work conditions are sometimes questionable. And for me, this is also an ethical and inclusiveness issue, and it is not included, the work of behind the AI is not included in the ethical guidelines, and it's not in the AI Act. And maybe a third point, there are the uses, because when we think about inclusiveness on a high macro level, we think about the disparities between countries. But I conducted field research about the interaction in human-machine interactions with different kinds of conversational agents. And when we can see with this data that there is an inequality between users. For example, when children or older people talk to these systems, they are not very well understood, or people with accent. So there are also issues of inclusiveness on this uses level in this example, but there are many other examples. So we can maybe think of the inclusiveness on these 3 levels: production, uses, and also legal regulation.
That's a fascinating characterization. Thank you, Julia. Aziz, I want to turn next to you. When we've, over the last couple of days, you've shown some amazing capabilities that are, far from reality in some of the Western European countries, whether it's a digital passport or a digital management system with regards to, your healthcare services and so on and so forth. Can you talk us a little bit through what that means in your socioeconomic
setting in terms of the challenges and opportunities when it comes to governing kind of those services, and how you see AI being integrated into that, and what that means for kind of the inclusivity aspects that we've heard before, but also the governance aspects.
Okay. Oh, thanks so much. Indian, so, thanks so much for this question. Yeah, true. Actually, let me present myself. Aziz Soltabayev. I'm from the Kyrgyz Republic. It's in the Central Asia. Central Asia is landlocked region in Eurasia. In some of the countries actually belong to the double landlocked countries, and basically we are part of the landlocked countries alliance. And going back, like decade ago, 10 years ago, from the perspective of the digital development, Kyrgyzstan or Kyrgyz Republic was actually really in the bottom quartile of in all of international indices, and we had one of the highest cost of the internet and probably low affordability and accessibility across the country. Considering the Kyrgyz Republic is for 95% consists of the mountains, and its relief actually shaped by the quite sharp mountainous relief. So in this regard, the situation really was horrible. It's kind of terrible in development, and so we would remain at the same level. But to this date, as I've been actually talking to Julian and other fellows, we see total dramatic transformation of the country, where my policy advisory and contribution was to the given moment. Actually, I have an application where I have all my digital identities, like my ID, my driving license, my birth certificate, the birth certificate of my kids, and the healthcare data for kids, for family, and I could actually appoint a meeting to a doctor, and actually I proactively got the notification from the Ministry of Healthcare about the time that my kids have to get some vaccination, and I have kind of proper kind of data sets available on the site. And this is one of the examples how kind of technology had transformed in our country, accessibility, affordability. The second point is that Kyrgyzstan is actually one top 5 countries with the cheapest internet connectivity, and in fact, actually, I have 600 megabits per sec for $11 per month in country, and we just completed a big project called Digital Casa, which provides 100 gigabit connectivity to 99% of settlements across the country. That creates kind of a gateway for a gigabit society. So that was actually done, these are actually good examples of the way how technology could provide a benefit for society, and would be beneficial for that. I mean, one more example is that of digital payments. In digital payments, that's a concept of the digital public infrastructure and digital public goods. And Kyrgyzstan actually adopted unified standards for digital kind of players in the market for interoperability in exchange of the money. And that actually led to actual dramatic transformation of the payment ecosystem in the country, benefiting not only to one specific company, but the whole, to all the companies, making growth that non-cash economy up to, in the first year was 1,000 times growth, and this year, over the last 3 years, is growing in such a sense that actually I'm not using cash at all, for the last half a year probably, and that's I just brought my debit card to Europe to pay in some kind of instances to see that kind of old-fashioned technology. But it's really useful, and this is not something that happens only in the capital, but also kind of in rural areas when this kind of unified standards could provide kind of additional benefit for society. Also, we from the other side, we do observe that doing this kind of reforms, we probably missed some of the guardrails on governance of the technology, and we see so much kind of pressure on the kind of activists, journalists, and freedom of speech in the public area. That also kind of resulted kind of on a negative, that shows kind of negative sides actually on the use of technology not for the benefits of society, but for the more surveillance and control. So in this regard, participation in this Paris AI Summit was really interesting to know that what my perspective was, like my vision, what my understanding was that we still kind of observed, like on the side events, there's a kind of homogeneous groups and then panel discussions that represent kind of some certain agenda or certain groups and certain groups, but not kind of, there's still kind of room for dialogue and for like communication between, global majority, like within the global majority and different stakeholders on the issues, what is important and what's not. Was really good to know to attend the panel, like AI Africa panel session, as well as Asia panel sessions and some discussions related, which held by AI in society. So from my perspective, what I see is, it seems to me that say kind of civil society from North America, like not North America, from the United States and UK and Europe, have totally different agenda than countries like in developing, such as like Kyrgyzstan. That's because we are kind of in a different stage of the adoption of AI. AI is like in the nascent stage. Our country is like eyeing on it, but have no actually much infrastructure for that, human capacity running for that. But what eyeing on it says that kind of it wants to join that communication or the dialogue, but has no capabilities for that. In that most of the kind of think tank reports, those like many countries of the global majority just present as a kind of indicators or indices in the international reports, but without much of kind of providing some kind of roadmap to for more inclusion of getting those countries onboarding to the topic of the global AI governance. And in this regard, I feel that that's kind of a thing that should be kind of addressed during those AI summits. Yeah.
Thanks, Aziz. Jibo, question I want to pose to you is, a country like India, played quite a major role, was official co-host of the summit, is also involved in great power politics of sort of between the US and China. But from an economic perspective, for a long time, a lot of the business models of emerging markets was that they benefited from some of the outsourcing of both production as well as service-based industries. With the tendencies of getting some of that automized, what is kind of the experience while the Indian economy is digitalizing, as well as some of those services that initially were tremendously beneficial are now potentially being automated as well. And I remember you sharing this example on what an engineer makes in India and what the impact of that is, and how you see the Indian government trying to come up with governance frameworks to address some of those risks and mitigate some of those risks, and ultimately seize on the opportunity. So if you can tailor your remarks to that point, we appreciate it.
Yep. So I will start with the Indian government part, then I will go to the job and the economic part. So it's fascinating that today I'm sitting here and speaking about how India's AI governance outlook has evolved, right? Because I'm one of the people who was involved in the early stage of it while building the India AI program. Initially, we use this word RACE, or AI for all. So RACE means responsible AI for social empowerment. That was very clear, and then another think tank, which is part of government, came out and said we can use AI for all. So the idea was how we can use this technology, phenomenal technology, to empower or solve many of the socio-political and economic challenges India has been facing, right? It's a huge country, dozens of over 22 official languages, different kind of demography, different kind of geography. So it's not easy, with a huge unorganized economic sectors also, labor force also. So that was the initial thought process, right? But you can look at in the last few months, it has gone from a case study focused ideology, AI governance ideology, what we wanted to build and solve
problems for the global south. There is a saying that if you can solve it for India, you can use it anywhere in global south because of the nature of complexities in India. So, for example, India's payment method, UPI, now you can use it in the Eiffel Tower and Singapore and many other places. The vaccination platform we built, which was used in many African countries, like the government was providing the infrastructure. Now, in the last 12 months or so, we have seen a slight shift into want to be more involved in the global regulatory aspects. It's pretty much saying that we don't want to be on the sidelines anymore. We are the largest democracy, the largest country in terms of population, and we would like to have a major say in how AI's future is being shaped, and that's what we have witnessed in the last few days here in Paris. And it also comes from the fact that the country had a negative experience in many other international regulatory efforts, whether it's nuclear or the UN itself, right? The country like India has never been in a permanent member of Security Council, right? Which is, I still believe, an unfair representation. So it has been one of the driving forces. And now we are coming and saying, India will be building its own foundation model in 8 months. I don't know the practicality of that or if you need it or not, but it's again posting itself as want to be a third power after US and China. And there are so many factors that can substantiate it. India is third in terms of AI research conducted in the last 5 years, third in terms of AI papers published, eighth in terms of, it is 2020 numbers, eighth in terms of AI patents filed for, and it has one of the fastest growing AI startup ecosystem as well. But the gap between US, China and India is huge. Now coming to the economic aspect, today I started my day by looking at a story about this IT company in India called Infosys, which is one of the largest tech companies. I know you might not recognize it by the name, but I will tell you in a different way you will recognize. It is the company of Rishi Sunak's father-in-law, the former British Prime Minister. So Infosys today, they have this campus training program. They will hire freshers from the college. They will put it in their campus. They have a huge campus in South India. They train them, and then they hire them. If you don't qualify the qualifying test, you will be eliminated. But out of nowhere, the company came and started firing people. Just like that. They were given barely 12-hour, 6-hour notice to vacate the whole campus, which is not even in a city. It has created a lot of uproar. This is the first time we are seeing this kind of massive firing. Over the past few years, India has also seen, because India's tech industry grew not because of innovation, because Chinese people couldn't speak English. I keep saying that. Because the manufacturing went to China. If Chinese people, Chinese would have spoken English, they would have taken the call center work or the IT outsourcing. Because we had this legacy of colonialism, which is English, we were able to get into the IT space and we built this service-based economy. Like companies like Infosys, they sit on a huge cash reserve. They never innovated anything. They just still use a cheap Indian labor. And that has been a trend. So the government wanted to intervene. The government said, we will cut the corporate tax because the country has been going through a economic recession of sort. The middle class, people are saying the middle class in India is shrinking. All the FMCG companies are saying. So how do you stimulate it? We'll say, these tech guys, we will cut your corporate tax so you can pay more to your employees. But that hasn't happened. The entry level salary, I was talking to Julian, offered by many of these big IT companies in India remains same as that of 2016. So $300,000 per annum is an entry level salary for a computer science graduate from one of the top colleges in India. And it comes because of the fact that many of the job roles these fresh students would do in a company like Infosys or TCS are now become automated, or there's this.
You said 300,000?
Yes. No, 3,000.
Yeah,
sorry, $3,000 US.
Quite a good salary.
$3,000. So 300. It's around. Yes. Sorry. I'm sorry. It's around 350,000 Indian rupee. Yeah. So that's where the problem is. It's $3,000 US. I mean, you guys know where it stands in terms of euros, right?
So it has been a reduction in the inflation. So many of this entry-level job has been disappearing for the last few years. And I think the government has now came up with a lot of ways to support it. They have, in the recent budget also, they have provided a huge package for upskilling of its labor force, upskilling, the youth in the country. But in the end, as much as we wanted to see, on the bright side, we have had a lot of positive impacts with AI. One good example is a platform called Bhashini. So one big challenge in the Indian space is communication through multiple languages. And there has been so much effort to impose one language, Hindi, as a unified language. But I'm coming from South, we resist that. We says we have our own language. We don't want to take a language. So the government has built this program called Bhashini, which was a humongous task, considering that there are very less language corpus to train Indian language models on. So the Bhashini model now uses quite well. It translates in English to many Indian languages, translate between many Indian languages itself, and many government services and private entities are using it. So this has also created some amazing tools and solutions. One AI generative AI power tool called Jugalbandi always caught my attention, which is if you are let's say a farmer in a rural India who doesn't have the digital literacy or expertise in English. Now you want to know about a government program, right? I want to buy a tractor. I want to know if there's a subsidy my state is providing. So my primary source of internet, primary access to internet will be WhatsApp, considering, right? So there's a number, you can drop a WhatsApp message in your own language. Let's say I'm putting it in Hindi, asking, I want to buy a tractor, or this is the state I'm from, is there a scheme I can apply for? Now that Hindi text voice message is converted to English text by this Bhashini layer. And then there is a ChatGPT API out there, which is trained on all the government schemes. And you will get a reply message in your own language, in voice. So they will ask a question. Okay, what is your annual income? Or which district are you from? So this kind of communication, this has been a fascinating way of solving problem, the voice communication. This has helped with jobs. There are job seeker platform for blue collar workers that works this way, and many others. So so many other issues like solving access to healthcare. For example, there's a tool called eParve, which is developed by another state. In India, 70% of preventable blindness is caused by cataract. 70% of preventable. That's where I want to draw the line. So now, how do you solve that? Because people in the rural India or remote areas in India, they don't know when they are the cataract started developing, and so it get delayed. Whatever intervention get delayed. So the state of Tamil Nadu came up with a tool. The idea is that you will have a AI-powered app on your Android phone. You will send a medical practitioner, not a doctor, because you have only one eye doctor or one ophthalmologist in India for every 200,000 people. So that's not practical. So you send a guy with a phone, you take the picture of the eye, and it will immediately tell you what is the level of cataract you have. And so this has been very helpful among senior citizens. And this data is immediately went to the the Blind Society of the state government. There's a dashboard. Their surgery is already scheduled based on the severity. So this way we've been solving problems. Now we want to go to the next level also. I think there's a lot to do with the current geopolitical tensions as well, I will say.
Wonderful. I want to leave room for questions as well, but maybe a brief round here on the question of Jibo started his intervention by saying that if it works in India, given the complexity, it will work in the region. So kind of this notion of using a country example and then making it broader and bigger for the region. Now, the question of ASEAN, of course, comes to mind. Can you talk a little bit about the regional integration of governance structures and how that you see that happening within the broader ASEAN region, and what level and role Thailand plays in that, and what the challenges are of basically the adaptability of different systems?
Yeah, thank you. So in Southeast Asian region, we have sort of a supranational structure, but not as a strong structure as the European Union. It's called ASEAN, right? So there are a lot of efforts in trying to come up with unified approach to many of the challenges that we're facing. So it's starting off with the ASEAN economic blueprint. So similar to the European equivalent of the economic pact that the EU had. But from the ASEAN perspective, the way that the policymakers from each and every country trying to draw a line in terms of the unified approach is we based out decisions on consensus. And we are taking a very strictly non-interventionist approach to domestic issues. So because of the part-dependent reasons, historical reasons, we don't like to be too much telling everybody what to do and how to do it. Better for ASEAN region to basically set an outcome or a principle that we want to achieve, and we leave it to each individual member state to try to get to where we want to go. Now, this means that the pace of development or pace of implementation of the type of governance, especially for AI that we want, might not be as even or timely as we might want. So from Thailand perspective, I think, and I think it's also, I can't speak for other countries, but I think it's similar in terms of approach. So we have to look for the a springboard or factors from within. So we're starting off with our needs and challenges within our economies. So I just like to echo what Jibu has said in terms of challenge in India as well. So it's similar to Thailand. This is where we start developing our governance structure on top of the framing issue that I mentioned earlier. So we don't have a big service industry in Thailand. We don't speak English. So we're not in the front line of getting exposed to the risk of a job displacement, as in many other fellow countries in the region or even in India. But we do facing a lot of headwinds in terms of integration of AI into the way that goods and services are manufactured. So Thailand is a big hub for manufacturing goods in the region, especially for car parts, electronic devices. So we are traditionally the hub for Japanese car manufacturers. They manufacture car in Thailand and then they distribute it around the region. Now, it's been like that for the past 30, 40 years. But then we starting to have these EV trend coming in, right? And one of the countries that have gone really big on EV revolution is China. And the way that Chinese structure their manufacture is they use less workforce, and they can do that for two reasons. So they automated most of the assembly line, and with the technology like AI, they can eliminate human interaction or human supervision of that assembly line even more. So with EV coming into the region, with Thai government trying to promote the fact that we want to be sustainable, we want to attract investment, new investment through EV industry, with the technology like AI coming and helping setting up of the factory in Thailand much easier without having to hire local laborers. And even if they need to hire somebody, maybe local labor are not equipped or educated in the new way of production of the EV car. So this is the challenge that we face. May not be as easily to comprehend, like, for example, a replacement of call center industries. So that's very visible in terms of how you explain that in the AI context. But for us, it's the integration to the manufacturing industries that has been a big challenge, so in a country like Thailand. So that's our approach. So we want to make sure that those that promoting innovation and the legacy society or legacy impact of the societies that we have can go hand in hand, or at least have a soft landing for many of the legacy industries in Thailand. And I think this speaks also to many countries, not just like Thailand, but I think around the world, especially in the global majority. And I think Jibu sort of echo that sort of effect in the Indian context as well. So I think that's where I would come in.
Julia, I want to stay on that topic for a bit of kind of applicability. So the European approach in a lot of ways is sort of setting a standard, right? I mean, there's this wonderful quote of US has all the money, China has all the capacity, and I think it's Ursula von der Leyen who said Europe has all the purpose in the sense of regulatory aspects. Now, what you see is that, of course, because of the market size that you have in Europe, those regulatory aspects do set a precedent, and companies who want to be active in the market have to comply. And that, similar to the way that California is playing in the United States, it sets sort of a standard. So can you talk a little bit about the philosophy of that regulatory approach that then sort of becomes the gold standard because of the capacity of the consumer market, and whether that is kind of a model of similar what we hear with regards to efforts on the regional scale in ASEAN, or as Jibu said, if it works in India, it will work everywhere, and whether you think this is actually a model for AI governance or not really, because it sort of misses the point. Yeah.
Yes. It's a very complex issue, but it's maybe it's like a democracy. I don't know if it will work, but it's the best thing we've found for the moment, and we will see. And the European legal framework existing for the moment is with a very limited effect. Everybody knows this, even on the European market. Because, for example, the AI Act, it distinguishes 4 levels of risks, and systems that are more present in the society actually are on the 4th level of risk that is not even regulated. They are just the obligations for transparency, informate users, etc. So even the European legal framework is very, very minimal for the moment. But the question how to function in a global world with the systems that are pervasive and that will go across the borders, even on the theoretical level, I don't see how we can have principles like equality, human rights, etc., and how to guarantee them otherwise than with a common approach, which is based on political level, on the political and legal regulations. I don't know how to attain this aim, but the market is a very different logic and aims than the defense of human rights or other ethical principles. So on this, concerning AI, but it's on every other area, and especially on digital services. The question is how to guarantee the human rights and the ethical principles with the functioning of the markets, which aims is to do business, not to guarantee rights.
That's Luhmann would say, the different code to stay in the area of sociology. I want to open it up. So if you have any questions, I see many wonderful. The gentleman right in front waited patiently. So we have a microphone coming here right in front. Gentlemen, please.
Yes, thank you for this discussion. And a remark I have to say, and it's a common remark when I attend this type of discussion. You speak for 2 hours about AI, and no one from you any time define what means AI. We don't know, after having heard you, what it means, what it is. What is the difference between AI and non-AI means programming? Okay, that's the first idea, but it's common to everyone, even researcher that researched for years or decades, they are not able to define it. Okay, but you still discussed, and I observed that in your discussions, you surely define AI differently, each of you, from the other, okay? Then how can you imagine that sometime we could have inclusivity when all or you from different regions in the world thinks differently about what is AI? That's, you know, we have in front of us, we have decades or centuries maybe of time before we have inclusivity. But personally, my feeling is that AI, I can tell you the definition of AI. I have studied AI for 50 years. Okay, so I have some philosophy, and AI is very linked in each country to the, I would say, the use and I would say the spirit of the countries and of the people. It's very linked to that. And if you have two countries that
things differently, they would have the way of building AI is different, and you cannot have common thinking. Europe maybe is something that could be better because we are together. We try to be together as much as possible. But I would say making governments, including US, Europe, China, and Russia, well, we have to wait, and I think that we will all be died if it happens.
I just want to add one line. Sir, there is this famous saying by John McCarthy, who coined the word artificial intelligence, that the moment it started working, you no longer call it AI.
That's wonderful. I think you raise an excellent point on defining what it actually means. One of the best definitions that I've ever heard about intelligence came from a professor of mine who said it's the ability to make decisions in the area of non-knowledge. So AI is actually a blatant mischaracterization of what it truly is. But point well taken. I see that we have some other questions over there. Here, Paula, lady on the right.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for such an insightful discussion, really. I have a question for Jivu and Narum. This is coming from a Peruvian living in Paris. So this is also part of the global majority. Your countries have adopted non-interventionist approach. India, Thailand is going to be the host of the Global Forum on the Ethics of AI this year. I work with UNESCO, that's why I know it. And actually, Thailand is following a very nice perspective. That's what I want to ask you. How do you feel with the Council of Europe AI Treaty? Because yes, pro-innovation is an interesting approach with developing countries that when we don't have startups and we are still developing this industry, right? But we need to set guardrails so that AI is developed and used in a responsible and ethical way. Japan and Canada signed the Council of Europe yesterday. So what do you think do you think your countries may sign it? Would you be up for it? What are your thoughts? And if Julia and Aziz want to contribute to this answer, also happy to hear you.
I can't speak for the government, whether the government would want to sign or not sign. I wish I could. But from my perspective, usually we like to be part of the table. We're in the process of joining the OECD. So that just shows our commitment onto global standards and the agreed principles. and all of the internationally agreed standards or principles that have been out there on AI. We are doing our best to learn and see how we can implement it in the local level. One of the things that I have a feeling over the past couple of days here in Paris is that not just Thailand or global majority. I think it's the global community. We are still lacking that last mile implementation, right? So we have a lot of fora trying to establish principles. We have a lot of fora trying to talk about standards and evaluation of models, but there's not a lot of help, especially for country in the global majority, to translate all of those talks into real world policy implementation, and with a different context as well, like what you've just said. The way that Thailand use and think about AI will be different because of the needs and also our sort of cultural aspects of the country. So from the one hand, because of that, we would have to find a way to implement it to fit our context. But on the other hand, I think we need more help also from the global community in trying to make sense of all of these different ideas and exactly for local implementation. So to cut the long story short, I think yes, we would love to be part of the table, but then I think that we need more help and more work to be done in terms of translating all of those into a local implementation.
Yeah. So from India's perspective, I'm sharing my personal thoughts, is that we feel that the EU's act is too restrictive. So we wanted a pro-innovation regulation, innovation that is more pro-innovation. And that's one of the reasons why we want to have our own say in the table rather than adopting what EU might have done or UK might have done. So India was the chair of GPAI and now co-chairing this and of course hosting the next summit. So we want to evolve our own way of governing and regulating AI rather than taking something from something that's already built because of the what we want as a country and the other circumstances that's involved. So I don't know how it goes, but India is always a little bit hesitant with the EU's policy. But then again, we have seen that the IT companies all in India has to follow GDRP once it came into existence. So that's another way of looking at it.
Wonderful. Well, I know we're running out of time, so I want to combine the two remaining questions. You already had one. So please, the two over there, yeah, and then we'll do a roundup and close the event.
Hi, thank you. Just one question regarding the first intervention of Narun. I really like the first intervention. You spoke about basically two groups. When we talk about AI, we can analyze this subject with there's two main groups. You said the cautious Democrats, kind of, and the one promoting the market dynamics. So my question is pretty simple. So don't you think that in the future it's going to be the main subject? So the people just like me cautious about these technologies and even really cautious, and the ones who just have the markets in mind. So would you think that at the end of the day, maybe it's just a matter of business? And so we have the business and we have, let's say, the people, the folks who just are cautious about this. So don't you think that's the main subject and we need to focus on that? Thanks.
We'll combine it. Yes, thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for a fascinating conversation, and I really appreciate the diverse voices that we have today in the room. My question relates to the point about pro-innovation regulation. And I've heard this whole, regulation stifles innovation and we need to deregulate because regulation is bad, etc. I want to understand specifically what you feel the EU AI Act is stifling in terms of regulation, in terms of innovation, and also relate back to the examples you gave around the use of AI for particularly health purposes and how India is looking at the protection of data in these high-risk cases. Thank you.
So I didn't say that EU is anti-innovation. I said the Indian government's policy is we want a pro-innovation ecosystem. Secondly, EU AI has a lot of good sides. I'm someone who likes the risk-based governance over what UK has been trying to do, right? The individual authorities to regulate its own field, right? And somebody from UK told that nobody knows how many bodies are there in UK for each sector. So that's one thing. But the most important thing is coming to healthcare, we actually recently signed the data protection law in India. Which includes personal data protection and other sensitive data. So I think that's one aspect the country has been very seriously. I know we are a little late to the data protection regulation, but from what I have seen interacting with the policymakers, interacting with the government officials and the business leaders across the country, we want our own way to look into what AI regulation means for us, rather than take something outside, because we had experienced it for 200, 300 years. Even India's constitution is pretty much based on the 1935 Government of India Act by the British. Yes, so that also adds into it, right? Yes.
I think your question goes to governance tools that we have, right? Who should be the main focus, or who should be the sort of the focus of the discussion. And from my perspective, I think there's two approaches at the moment, two governance tools that we can think about, and there are examples of implementation of both of these tools. So first, you can structure the decision making around a small group of experts with strong obligations to listen widely. So if at the end of the day, whatever policy that comes up will come from this expert group, but with extensive inclusive engagement mechanism. So that's one way. The other way is to open up the decision making to a wider group, a more representative group. For example, might be the parliament or the representative elected officials. Or something like that. That would be another approach, right? To go big first, but also with an obligation to listen to the experts. So there has to be an informed information coming into that big group decision-making structure. So to my understanding, there's these two approaches. And each approach will answer your question differently. Right? So it depends on the context of the country. It depends on the region. I think for the EU, to my understanding, you tend to go for the second option with the legislation, which is basically the will of the entire union with input from the experts. Now, there are other settings in international policy making that go for the first one, which is the smaller expert group with obligation to listen widely. So I can't say that which one is better, but I do think that we need to have an opportunity to try both approaches with maybe limitation or way of limiting liability or implication that could come out of that. And we are in that process right now of seeing which experiments maybe work best in the AI context. Yeah.
Well, regarding your question related to the legislation, I should say that basically the EU legislation is good in a sense that it relates to the economic context of the European Union in its rationale. But the importing of that kind of legal infrastructure and environment usually should be comparable to the economic value and the public value of the country that imports to. Like, to give you example, Kyrgyzstan actually succeeded in this kind of digital public infrastructure journal thanks to those like legislations built in the European Union, because we actually imported technology, that's Estonian technology X-Road for interoperability, which is designed by secure, safe by default. So that means the technology that we imported to our country was like actually secure and safe, compliant with European and international legislation, which is good as an example actually when you when like international players come to small markets. But at the same time, we see that there two this is good, and on the bad side actually that not all international it is bad that not all countries actually support and endorse that kind of commitments, and we have actually a bad case which we still need to research. Is that just what is good is it was actually on the kind of sandbox under the trial period, but the thing is that our country signed the MOU with the kind of provider of AI solutions of our northern neighbor, who actually provided the services to providing diagnostics of heart stroke, right, based on the ECG, and the model was actually trained on the population. And when our doctors actually, the Ministry of Healthcare actually started testing based on the data sets from Kyrgyzstan, it turned out that almost like 100%, like 95, 98% of people whose data actually been submitted were either having a heart stroke or dead. Yeah. So that means there's an issue, right? When just like simply kind of importing like international technology such as like AI solution like to the country without kind of understanding local context, which is could be kind of given different ways to the different parameters and values, could be really kind of having a negative scenario and a negative impact. So in this regard, our healthcare officials and the consilium figure out that the size of our veins in the high altitude countries is larger than of people actually in the low altitude countries. Therefore, the people actually diagnosed with heart stroke, which was not true. So in this regard, definitely it would be worse that all countries would be endorsing and like keeping those international standards for of AI governance to ensure that first of all actually they pass the test, and while importing to the specific country or the specific region actually tested and kind of piloted in a small sense prior full-scale kind of deployment in country. So yeah, I'm quite supportive of that kind of legislation.
Yes. Maybe I can just link your two questions, because you had your first question with very questions inside, and your question on the regulation, and maybe we didn't spoke so much about the fuel or the base on which these systems works, the data sets. And just to follow on your question, for me, this debate on the regulation is that the regulation will hinder innovation and research is a kind of ideological position, because every economic sector and production everywhere in the world is regulated in one way or another. And why today we have a system and systems, AI systems, and we have this position that we have not to regulate them. And in the same line, we can also see that saying that the design, the ethics and the ethic principles will be in the design of the systems. That is so, and it will be sufficient. Is also an ideological position, because we can see that there are so much different things that will happen in the uses, misuses, proliferation, and we cannot be limited to design. So the regulation is necessary. Then how to do this on the all over the world, and how to articulate international standards with local specificities. There's work to be done. But in your question, I heard three different questions. What is AI? How it is linked to society and culture, and how to regulate it. So it's a program of a new conference. But everything is linked. That's true. Maybe it will be interesting to hear your definition of AI. But for me, I'm a sociologist, not a data scientist. But what is new with these systems of the last wave of AI? We know that it was created in 1856 at Dartmouth's workshop. But today we have these algorithms based on neural networks and machine learning and deep learning. And what is new for it is these huge data sets, databases, and computational power. They have to treat these databases. And what are these databases? This is the society and the culture encoded inside with bias, and different specificities. And the regulation is needed because of that, because in these databases we have everything. Art, medical, sensible data, our interactions. And this point of the regulation and the governance of databases and who use these databases to do what, it's a very important point, and we didn't spoke about this so much today. So the regulation is about the data. But what is your definition of AI?
We're going to save this for the next panel. We'll have you featured in the next event. I know we're running out of time, and there's nothing worse than standing between lunch and the panel. So I want to thank, first of all, the IRIS, in particular Alix, thank you so much for putting this all together. I want to thank our fellows and the panelists for giving us your time, and the people that joined online, and thanks to all of you made the way here and spent the morning with you. I hope you all get home safely and have enjoyed the activities of the Paris AI Action Summit if you were participating. And I'll leave it at that. Merci à vous. Thank you.